All right, we're going to give everybody until 2:01, which we've just hit. We want to keep everyone on time. We know we've got our busy days ahead. So why don't we kick this off? Yeah, welcome everyone to our webinar series today. We've got Maximize AI Opportunities with Microsoft Sales Advisor and Incentives. So more Lighthouse coming your way, and more information around Sales Advisor today. In the house, we have got today myself, Jermaine Clark, Modern Work Dynamics and 365, Dynamics 365 and Copilot lead here today. And Mike Davies, our product sales manager for Modern Work and Cybersecurity.
Yeah,
and we will be with you for an hour. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Sounds like it. I think hopefully, this will be one of those ones we get to talk about later on because it's Movember aligned, so it makes good sense. For quick housekeeping on the webinar today, we will share the content at the end. We have a recording going, and as usual, we'll publish it to our YouTube page, but we will also send it out to all the attendees or registrants from the webinar today. Please do ask any questions, throw a hand up, drop questions in the Q&A panel so that we can kind of direct ourselves around the content that we're presenting. And we want to make sure that we have an interactive session. So we're going to hopefully try to poll you a few times throughout the conversation today. With that, our agenda for today will cover introduction to the opportunities with Microsoft Sales Advisor and looking at our incentives. We're going to look at Microsoft Lighthouse in an overview, Sales Advisor overview, renewals and upsell opportunities, because everybody loves NCE and we know renewals are coming up. And then we're going to crown it off with a Q&A session. So with that, I'll ask our team to pop up the initial poll so that we can get a gauge of who's in the room. Yeah, so quick poll here. What are the opportunities for MSPs around AI readiness, and why should they care? Feel free to answer. We'll monitor the polls and the responses as we go along. Are you using Lighthouse for management or sales opportunity generation? How are you using it today? And if you aren't, if you're using another tool, feel free to drop that information, hit no on the poll and drop that information into the chat section so people can see what tools you're using right now to kind of monitor and drive that 365 tenant management. Okay. So quick by show of wow, polls looking good. We've got yes only at around 38% so far, and most people are not using it. If you can comment in the chat what you are using instead of Lighthouse today, let us know. That would be great and helpful and useful for us today. With that, you've probably heard a lot of this already. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that road to AI and Copilot with M365. Microsoft's pushing this along. Today, there's all kinds of great announcements been coming out of Microsoft Ignite over the last couple of days. And things are getting more and more integrated as we move forward, which is a good sign and good news for all of us. In the next kind of that technology impact, many of you have probably seen this slide already coming out of our different roadshows, webinars we've done, presentations all across the Microsoft space. But realistically, just as a reminder, as we kind of push this through, the appetite for AI is there. ChatGPT right now, within 3 months, hit that 100 million users. It has blown past that by a decade and a half now. In terms of the time frame of how things are happening, everything's happening at lightning speed. By the time I was in a demo yesterday, by the time the page loaded and someone gave me the name of the area of Microsoft that I was looking at, the thing changed in front of me. So at this time, the naming conventions, everything's changing as Microsoft kind of rolls this pony down the road. So it's getting really exciting, but very complicated as well. But they're trying to kind of rein it in and make it more useful as we go along. And when we think about the mainstream around where AI is going, at this point, people have been using Copilot for about a year, depending on where you sit in the market. ChatGPT has already gone through 5 iterations. They're coming out with newer and newer models that are working far more advanced than they used to. And when you think about the demand in where they're utilizing it, there's everything in every area of our businesses today. Any thought work or administrative work or job that requires writing, documentation, management of portfolio, stock, logistics, everybody's using it now.
Yeah.
And that AI market's not going anywhere because now all of the governments have invested into it. And regardless of which one ends up being the one on top, at this point, the AI is becoming mainstream. Very soon, everybody will be like, well, there used to be a time when it wasn't there, and now we can't remember when that was. So
Yeah.
it's huge in the space.
Yeah, a year ago, you'd hear, "Oh, my industry isn't really gonna be affected by AI." That's not the case anymore. We're finding new, fun, exciting use cases that are industry-based all the time. I'm always interested to hear more and more of them, and you'll see a lot of those coming out, uh, consistently through Ignite and the industry-based offerings around Copilot as well.
So when we think, when we kind of, and thank you for that, Mike. I mean, I think it makes good sense. It's one of those things where back in the day they said, nobody's going to ransomware my company. Well, ransomware isn't, it's not picky. It'll take the 5-man company. It'll take the 500 people company. It doesn't matter. With that though, when the opportunity's sitting around, and again, this is, May 8th, 2024 data. If we think about between May to November, what's happened, this is probably 96% of people at this stage that are using AI at work in some form or fashion. 6 months ago, from 6 months ago, because everybody's like, oh, well, in some form or fashion, I'm going to use it. Not necessarily Copilot, but it could be any one of them. It could be Mithril, it could be Midjourney, it could be ChatGPT online, it could be Google Gemini, you name it. There is some form of this being utilized both at work and at home. So that percentage is most likely a lot higher than it was come since May.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you look at Microsoft 365 Copilot, the opportunities that are there for service, deployment, and utilization of Copilot are huge. This is the magic stick, the golden carrot, whatever you want to call it at this point. That is your end customers are going to be asking for on a consistent basis. It's only going to get more. The demand is only going to increase until this kind of levels off. And during that time, all of the recommendations you are trying to make to your end customer to get better with their security services, manage their data better, take care of their deployment, all of that stuff that you have been recommending, they're going to come back to you and say, hey, I would like to have AI or Microsoft 365 Copilot or put ChatGPT internal. And the first thing you get to say is, well, hey, I'd love to do that. Let's talk about your security. Let's talk about your utilization. And let's talk about how we're going to manage this new technology going forward for your company. So a lot of revenue stream available there when you think about how that's going to go. When you look at managed services for Copilot preparation, I've seen now to date probably 6 different companies that are already in the last month are providing a full implementation service to MSPs to help them to implement it for their end customers, just because the need is there. When you look at that, you look at adoption and training. Once you've received it, it's been implemented. How are we going to go ahead and learn how to use this internally? How are we going to make sure that the end customer is getting the value that they're looking for? And then based on that, you get to also develop things like Microsoft Copilot agents or a specific Copilot for an entire tenant where you build it out in Microsoft Copilot Studio. So there's a lot of really good potential there. It also means, of course, that you have to upskill your own team and make sure that you can fill these gaps. And in order to do that, you've got to train, you've got to adopt and do it yourselves internally as well, right? There's no amount of videos that you can watch that will allow you to be able to be hands-on and be able to prepare and or support your end customer in this need. So with that, we've set the tone for everyone. What do you think, Mike? Have we given enough
Yeah.
information there? Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we've given enough of the reason why we want to talk about this, the context that we're going to
Yeah.
talk about from a Microsoft Lighthouse perspective. I think
Good.
we've
So with that, for this afternoon, we're going to cover how we're going to look at the overview for the topics today. And what we want to cover for you is we want to take you through how Microsoft Lighthouse, free, available within your Microsoft 365 tenant, can help you to prepare for your customers for the AI eventuality by providing them that guidance, We want to take a look at renewals and licensing upcoming. You have all your customers are going to come up for NCE renewal over the next few months as we go into 2025. And the most important thing to create that stickiness and support trained customers to take a look at their licensing, work with them to make sure that they're paying for the right licensing that they're going to commit to for the next year. And going through that iterative process, by extension, have an opportunity to say, well, you've been on business basic standard for the last however long. Here's what the security looked like. Here's what you get from business premium. Here's what you get from going from E3 to E5 or OE3 to ME3 or ME5. Here's why you would want to do that to prepare your environment to be AI ready. So when you think about putting that in place, you have that for renewals and licensing, but then you also have that opportunity to make and streamline their environment that much better from a licensing perspective. Then we're going to cover a little bit around the programs and promotions. Some of this you've already seen in our incentives webinar we did earlier in the year. But that being said, these are important. They're still available. We've got until the end of December with some of these promotions, and we want you to know about them so that you can get them across the line. So with that, Mike, I'll turn it over to you, and we can start walking through our overview of Lighthouse.
Okay, excellent. So with Microsoft Lighthouse, one of the biggest bits of feedback we received actually around Copilot was how MSP is going to operationalize how they're going to go to market with it, identifying opportunities, and really being able to create an assessment. So that's where Microsoft Lighthouse really shines. So Microsoft Lighthouse is your single pane of glass view for all of your customers, the managed tenants that you have for all of your customers. So it's going to be your single pane of glass where you can manage, monitor, and see alerts for all of your customers. You're going to be able to see the tenant configurations that you have and some detail, which we'll jump into. You're going to be able to see user device and data protection policies that are applied and who's adhering to them or not compliant. And then for your net new customers, onboarding experience and understanding and quickly assessing where your customers sit in terms of the technology that you're now inheriting and how you deal with their Microsoft tenant. It's a great way to analyze where they come in with you. So we're going to be talking about those from an operational standpoint, and then we're going to get into the proactive account management section, where we're going to look at opportunities that can be identified through Lighthouse and renewal cycles. So that's where we're going to start. The first thing that I want to say is to get the best use of Lighthouse, and pull in your Defender telemetry data into Lighthouse, you want to be utilizing Defender for Business or Business Premium. You can still utilize this with Basic or Standard. You can still see those tenants and the licensing there, but you're not going to get that threat management functionality that we're going to show in a little bit. So that's kind of where you want to get your customers to be able to fully leverage this tool set. And with that, I'll take you to kind of the high level tenant overview and configuration portion of Microsoft Lighthouse. So this is the Microsoft demo environment, or their click-through environment. So you're going to see in here customer names. These are each of the managed tenants that you see here. And it gives you a bit of high-level detail about each organization that you're managing. So do you have the right delegated access and GDAP set up for them? You can quickly see the secure score of all of your customers. And then you're able to see the baselines or standards that your customer is being measured against. So you might have different ones for different customers, and I'll jump into that in a little more detail. And then you can see how far along they are in that deployment of those baselines or standards. So this is really where you can see their progress. And you can get more than just a check mark of complete versus not complete.
And just to kind of pop in here and be like this is
Yeah.
really important. So we're going to pop up another poll. Keep an eye on our polls. Please do participate and answer. We're going to pop a second poll up, and when we kind of look at this, it's are you familiar right now? I love asking this question because some of the questions I get asked by MSPs are usually around, well, what's my roadmap to supporting my customer? How do I know what I need to do? One of the great places to start is how familiar are you with their secure score and their security baselines coming out of the Microsoft 365 tenant? And if you're very familiar, great. Then that's a great opportunity. You've got your roadmap. You've probably got them up to 85% in their secure score. If you're sort of familiar or not familiar at all, this one's a trick question. Both of those mean the same thing. It means you've got to go back and get very familiar with it and work your way through that, because that's going to help you to dictate without having to figure out a way to tell your end customer that they need to put GDAP in place, they need to have conditional access travel policies, they need to make sure that they use Microsoft Intune, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for their device and data management. Very important one to answer, because then from that perspective, it'll help us to see on your end your roadmap for all your customers, and then you get to see them in a single pane of glass that shows up and says, hey, here's where everybody's at. Your client with the lowest secure score right now, your average secure score across tenants is 45%. Not great, which means you have something for yourself and your team to go back to your customer and say, hey, we need to get you up to 100 or 85 in this case. Here's how we're going to do it, and here's how we want to work with you. And again, you can't be at 40% and looking to implement AI.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, that's one of the biggest things that we get as feedback is how do I create that assessment? How do I review my customers for the security standards that they need to meet? The secure score is a great stepping stone to ensuring that you've got what's needed in place to go ahead and put Copilot out to your customer in a secure fashion. One of the things that I want to mention before we move off of looking at the tenant configurations is looking at the tags. So you can create custom tags or groupings to filter your customer base based on the different standards that they might adhere to or the different groups that they might have, whether you do that as industry, partner service levels. If you offer different service levels, you could tag them here. You could even put them by account management, like who is the account manager on the particular customer, or you can see here in the screenshot, they have onboarding customers that then they tag and filter by. So this is a great way to quickly look at various segmentations of your customer base. Now, by uh, looking at the baselines, this is really core to the functionality of Lighthouse is understanding those deployment baselines. So you can have multiple deployment baselines that you review your customers against. There's different industries that are going to need to adhere to different compliance standards. There's going to be different complexities of your customers or sizes that might have different requirements from cyber insurance that you want to review and ensure that those standards meet what their requirements are. So you can develop your own custom ones. There is a default baseline that's in Lighthouse today that you can use as kind of your template and jumping off point. But really, this is the key to the tenant security that you're going to want to be able to go forward with. Now, this is also where you can review and understand their size. So when you click into a particular customer, you're going to be able to see more detail. You're going to be able to see a lot of detail, the demographics, how many users there are, devices, their secure score, where they are in their deployment stages based on the deployment tasks that are assigned in each of those baselines. So this is where you can quickly identify what is next on the to-do list for a particular customer. Now, this is what a deployment plan will look like, or the requirements, the tasks that are built into it. And you can see that it's going to identify whether you've taken this action, if they're not in compliance with it today, users, if applicable, and give you that level of detail. Now, with that, this list, these steps within your development plan is really depending on your service, could be a to-do list for your team. These are the things I have to get done for my customer already. Or better yet, this is a list of chargeable services that you're selling to an onboarding customer as a security baseline project to get them up to your particular standard. So this is where, depending if this is baked into your service already, this is a to-do list. It could be the stepping stones to what your initial project could be for an onboarding customer, for example. You also, within Microsoft Lighthouse, have the ability to manage users from across your tenants. So being able to see all of your customers, all of your users in a single list. You can do some of the same things that you could do in the admin center. So you can manage users for password resets, blocking access, assigning licenses, and take those actions. What we're showing you here is the risky users page that's going to show you across all of the users that you're managing, compromised, at risk, or remediated users, so that you can quickly take action on it. This is a great place for someone on your either service desk, centralized services, whatever it might be, to take a look. Whoever's reviewing security telemetry data on a consistent basis, no longer do you have to go into multiple portals, multiple admin centers to see all of this. You can quickly take these actions, block a user's access if required from Lighthouse. This is supposed to be your full visibility of everything in all of the customers that you manage. So that's really a time saver and a way for you to utilize this tool set to manage your customers more effectively. You also have threat management. So I mentioned that within the at the start that if you have the Defender for Business or you have business premium licensing for a particular tenant or particular users, you're going to be able to have the threat management capabilities that's baked into Microsoft Lighthouse. This is going to be able to, again, allow you to leverage those capabilities from a centralized environment without having to go to the next Microsoft portal or a particular admin center for a customer to take these actions. With each threat, you also get the details and the action, so you can take that action right there. In this case, run full scan to try and remediate the threat action, the active threat that's in place. So you can see the instances that you have in a little more detail, as well as the documentation that relates to that particular threat right here within the Lighthouse environment. So from a tenant administration and overview perspective, you're able to apply standardized security configurations across your customers and analyze how they're doing. You're able to quickly assess the onboarding steps that need to be taken or the actions that you need to put in place. I know when I was working at an MSP, we would set aside quite a bit of time to do this assessment. We would have a technician that would be going and clicking through and analyzing each of these feature sets to see if they were in place or not for an oncoming onboarding customer. Now that gets done instantaneously. As soon as we bring them into Lighthouse, we get a compliant or not compliant checklist already done for us. So then we don't even have to go and verify, oh, yes, this is or isn't in place. We now have the particulars already sorted, and now we can just move forward and analyze the rest of the customer's environment. All right, so we're now going to transition from the tenant management to sales advisor, looking at the opportunities that Microsoft identifies for you within sales advisor. So with that, Microsoft is looking for a few things. we've got the context of looking at Copilot. That's one thing that it's going to do is identify your customers that are ready for AI. It's going to help you with the information that you need, the customer insights that you require. It's also going to help you with the renewal conversation. So we've got a lot of upcoming renewals. And with that, it's really important that you've got the visibility and insight into that. So with that, Microsoft isn't just saying every single customer needs to go up a tier in their licensing. There's a little more to it. Microsoft is using AI and machine learning to reason over and look at the customer tenants to identify probabilities of a customer that needs to upgrade. It's also looking at the usage of a particular software or a particular service within the license set that they have today to determine what they're utilizing, what they're not utilizing, where they might go next within the Microsoft world. So we'll delve into that in a little more detail now, but it does take some human intelligence. This isn't just a statement or an opportunity that is going to happen without your interaction. Microsoft's absolutely understands that you know your customer best, and you're going to have conversations with them that may make an opportunity valid or not valid that they recommend. So what you're seeing here is the opportunities page across all of your tenants. So what Microsoft has done is they've used the data at their disposal to come up with the recommended actions, opportunities, or recommendations that they think are going to yield high results. You can see here that there's upgrading to Microsoft Business Standard for this particular customer with a high probability. It's telling you the products, and it's telling you when it came, the number of licenses that are involved with that opportunity. You've got the ability to filter. So what type of opportunities? So there's lots of types of opportunities. There's upsells, there's engagements, trials that you might want to put your customer on, but there are a lot of different opportunity types that you can filter on, or probabilities you could filter and say, I only want to look at the high probability opportunities that Microsoft has identified.
And a lot of this is important when you're having that AI conversation. You want to make sure that road to AI, here's what I'm doing, Mr. Customer, here's the recommendation and the information that we have that says, here's why you should look at this, and here's why you should upgrade to this other license, because one, it saves you money. That one we can always debate to the end of the day. Here's a business premium, total cost all up. Here's all the little patchworks that we have in place today to kind of support you. But having that insight and being able to say, every customer you have a conversation with, you've got 10 people over here that are on incorrect license, or trial is running out on this. We should review that trial and see what's up. Your licensing is coming up for renewal. Are you downsizing? Are you upsizing? What are you doing? How are you going to move that forward? So lots of good opportunity in there when you take a look at that across your tenant.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is looking at in more detail a particular opportunity. It's going to give you a little bit of customer insight, the suggested actions. But I'd like to draw special attention to the related resources at the bottom. So instead of just saying, hey, you should go pitch Microsoft Copilot to your customer, it's going to arm you with that collateral that you're looking for. So if it's an intro email, pitch deck, or briefing, you're going to get all of the content that Microsoft has that's white labeled, ready for you to put your spin on it and make it sound more like you. But this is really the starting point and building blocks for you to go and bring that to your customer base, especially if it's for a solution that you're not as comfortable, you haven't gone through those sales cycles again and again and again. Here's the collateral that you need to go have that conversation with that customer. So this is particular to the opportunity section. So it's going to help you discover and identify which opportunities or which of your customers have a high propensity to move, to upsell, to add a service. And that might be AI related, Copilot related. It might be anything within the Microsoft stack. So that's really what the opportunity section is for. I urge you to go and take a look at them. One thing that I forgot to mention is in that opportunity listing, you have a little thumbs up and thumbs down option. If you like the recommendation, it went well, you sold from it, you can give the feedback to Microsoft. If it didn't go well for whatever reason, you can give it the thumbs down and say that did not go well, or I disagree with this recommendation. So then they can kind of improve their process as well. Now, if we're looking at the renewals uh, section here, um, Jermaine mentioned it earlier. NCE and renewals has become a much larger task. So I'll ask that the third poll be put out now. How are you doing with how easy is managing your Microsoft licensing renewals? So easy you can do it in your sleep. I have nightmares about NCE renewals and I ignore them entirely. Uh, I'll be honest. It depends on the day, but I might fall into all three buckets some days. So it really depended on the customer, but we'll jump into kind of how Lighthouse can make this easier for you and have an easier conversation around it.
And I mean, nightmares are good. They're really good dreams. If you want to kind of talk through and think about what you're working on with that, as you kind of think about it, it is your biggest opportunity to kind of stop for a second, um, help your partner to save money, reduce costs, make sure that you've got the right user counts and you're billing them not only for your renewals. It's really good. It's a really good way to also look at your per user cost price in your contract with your end customer during the renewal period for Microsoft, because it's a good time. They're like, oh yeah, we're at 75. And you're like, okay, great. I've been billing you for 61 for the last 6 months. Now that you have also now confirmed to me that with your Microsoft licensing, you actually have these other 14 people. I'm going to go ahead and add that to your annual agreement and uplift your per user cost with us as an MSP. So it's really good because now they're confirming how much licensing they're paying for with Microsoft. You can turn that around and be like, okay, great. I'm going to confirm my contracts with you as well. There's a two-way street and kind of having that renewal conversation happening. The other
Okay.
part of that, the majority of these renewals are coming up kind of, January to April, depending on where your end customer sits. Some of them may be happening in December. But you want to be looking at that and you want to be having those conversations, at minimum 3 months out, because you want to socialize the conversation, make sure they understand, make sure they know what they're going to be paying, and then get the okay all before the renewal date comes up. And the sooner you start with that with your end customers, the better, because then you have a better platform to move off from, because you're the one that's initiating that conversation and you're trying to ensure that you're showing that you care about their business and making sure that they're not overspending on licensing they're not using. So showing the effort to your customers and having that renewals like is really important from an opportunities perspective and how you get that forward. But then when you think about the priorities that you're looking at with renewals, where it's possible, everybody wants Copilot. Like you don't have to go tell people, hey, buy Copilot. The customers want it. So they're like, Mr. MSP or Miss MSP, I need Copilot. How can you help me? But when you think about who has the transition, it's the people that are still on their on-prem, the people that haven't fully migrated to M365 cloud. They're kind of using some parts and parcels of the products. So you want to identify the ones that have the largest gap and help them to get forward on that, which is kind of your highest propensity for customers to kind of move to the next level. And you want to make sure that they understand what's happening in each of those sections. And then the on time renewals, like you want to make sure people, if you don't do it on time, and take a look at that in priority and say, hey, I want to make sure, Mr. Customer, that you're not going to overspend and get locked into
Yeah.
NCE that we love so much for another year on 65 licenses when you've downsized your organization to 55. I want to make sure ahead of time, confirm with you that this is what I'm renewing because I want you to know that you should reduce these users and turn them into shared mailboxes, etc. Like it's important to be able to do that because then shows that you're interested, shows that you're paying attention. And if you're like most of the MSPs that we've had conversations with, you've got a single person kind of going through right now and trying to figure out who's renewing when, etc., etc. Just use Lighthouse, get Lighthouse running, and make sure that you have an opportunity to take this and deal with that for the end customer.
Yeah.
And of course, as we go through and we think about how Microsoft supports us, in Microsoft world, they said there has not been a price increase in recent years, and now the annual paid monthly licenses are going up by 5%. Starting April 1st, they're going up by 5%. Now, what does that mean? Here's a key aspect. If you lock in your renewals prior to that date, that means that they're locked in for another year at their current rate. However, if you wait until after April, or they're for whatever reason they haven't confirmed that, well, yeah, it also means more Microsoft money, and the stock will go through the roof. But that being said, it's also a great way to make sure that when you go back to that customer and you say, "Hey, renewals are coming up. We need to renew this prior to April 1st. If we don't, you're going to see a 5% hike this 2025 year. Otherwise, they get it 2026. It's going to hit them eventually, but having that insight to be able to say, let's move this thing forward and get that moving would really help. That also deals with your incoming migrations from other disties or other places you purchase your CSP. If you're moving into Sherweb or you're bringing a customer over from a different location, you want to make sure that you do that prior to April 1st so you can kind of leverage that.
Yeah.
So if we take a quick look at the summary, in terms of what's changing, this is for annual paid monthly. And you want to make sure that the billing price or renewal term subscription starting on April 2025 will be that 5% higher. So you're going to have to go through and make sure that your end customers are updated, that this is coming, to make sure that they're aware, but also for yourselves. Here you go, make sure you're aware of what's happening. The products that this will hit will be your M365, O365, Windows 365, Dynamics, Power Platform, and a few of the online services. This is not the whole list, obviously, but when you think about it, whichever space you're playing in, whether you're M365 or O365, you want to make sure that you're having these conversations ahead of time and you're letting people know what changes are coming and what's going to happen with their billing come 2025 April. With that,
Yeah.
we're going to
Just
pop
before
back.
we
Yeah, go
before
ahead.
we get off of our public service announcement here on Microsoft pricing, just you may have seen it on the previous slide, but that is a commercial only uplift. It does not apply to government, not for profit, or education customers. They are unaffected by that change
Yeah.
yet. It has not been announced. No timeline has been specified for them at this point. All right.
Excellent. So back
Let's
to
get back to
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse. Yeah. So looking at this, the renewals page here. So this is where you're going to be able to see that centralized view of all of your upcoming renewals, and you can filter them by how much runway you want to see. So whether that's 90 days, 30 days, 14, 5 days, you can go ahead and look at short windows within renewal timeframes to make sure that things are being hit exactly when they need to. You can also see details like, is recurring billing in place, which could be really bad if they're not and you're expecting them to be. And then seeing total number of licenses, billing frequency that's going to be applied to each of them. So this is where you've got the ability to manage it. If there's one person handling all of your licensing renewals, this is now their favorite page in Microsoft that they can go and look at and get a comprehensive view of all of the licenses that are renewing. So this is where you're going to want to be able to drill down and then have those conversations early with customers about the actual quantities that they should be renewing at. Now, you can also see by clicking on a particular tenant in this view, you can see everything that they have. and that they're upcoming. Jermaine mentioned you might want to be migrating people from a particular license, see the usage that they have, and then be able to augment and change at those renewal dates to better utilize your licensing or make sure that you have the appropriate licenses assigned to each of your customers and each of the users there. So this could be a real cost savings measure, show your customer that you truly care about their business. The number of times that I went through one of these Microsoft licensing reviews with my customers, and it ended up yielding a ton of opportunities for uh, understanding what their actual workflows are, teams that required their licenses. It ended up leading to a lot of services revenue
Yeah.
by the end of it, because I'd be able to determine that uh, only half their team or only is utilizing a particular productivity tool set. Oh, they want to get their uh, finance team utilizing Power BI now, and all of a sudden now I've got a data related project that came out of a Microsoft licensing review. So the number of times a renewal conversation led to services revenue is tons on my side. So this is
No.
a great way to kind of
And
review.
if we go back to that poll where NC gives you nightmares,
Yeah.
um, we wanted to make sure that you understand this makes it easier. So as you get the shakes coming out of, the previous calendar year and you're like, oh, renewals are coming up and you're sweating and shaking, you don't need to be doing it all in the same way you did it last year or the year before or last week even, depending on where you are in that somewhat familiar with Lighthouse. Get in there, turn on Lighthouse, go take a look at it, verify the data, and then use it so that it supports you in getting that renewal conversation going and looking for those opportunities based on what we've seen here with the presentation through kind of Lighthouse and how Sales Advisor can help.
Yeah, absolutely.
With that, I think we're gonna just do a quick reminder. Microsoft promotions that you should be leveraging today. There's one new one that we've added in. Microsoft's made available to us. But with that, CSP briefings, I've already put, thank you for the question earlier. I've already dropped the link into the chat. Download the CSP briefings kit there. The instructions are there. You have to sign up with the Microsoft Global team through HSV Digital to get your tenant configured so that you can conduct the CSP briefings. But for all new partners that are there, the briefings are running through Microsoft and funded all the way through to the end of their fiscal year in June. And the promotions are available for you to go ahead and run the CSP briefings. As a new partner, you get 6 briefings max per in the first quarter. And then anything after that, you can even do additional briefings through co-op funds and get $1,000 back forward and going through running the material, showing casing that information on Copilot, and then showing it off to your end customers. So you're getting paid an additional fund to take time out of your day to learn about this and showcase it to your end customers, which hopefully will turn into you working through the adoption with them. You're going to take a quick one around when you take a look at from just on Copilot by itself, you get your core incentives from Microsoft, your tier 1 and tier 2 from 365 Copilot ME3, ME5. When you look at your customer ads, if you add net new or add additional licensing between now and December, you get 15% on Copilot discount, which is in addition to all the other discounts that's already there. The only caveat with that is if you haven't purchased a license in the last few months, you have to purchase 10 in the gap window, which would be kind of October, November, December. So if you haven't purchased any new Copilot licenses in the last couple of months, you go in now, you purchase 10, you'll get an additional 15% on top of everything you get right now on Copilot. So if you think about that and you look at what you can support your end customer with, just give them the whole 15% or leverage it however makes the most sense to your company. The other part of this is to most recently, I think in the last 2 weeks, Microsoft has now released a nonprofit SKU that has access to that same 15% discount. Once you purchase the first 10 licenses, you can then go ahead and add incremental licenses between now and the end of December, which will still apply to that 15% during the promo period. So lots of good cash back, lots of good incentives back on the Copilot front. And you want to make sure that you're leveraging those because you can get as far as that kind of 25%. That's a quarter of the cost. And especially, this was just recently confirmed this week as well. You can add those licenses now and co-term them with any Copilot license that you have today in the tenant. So if you've only got 5 months left on that current Copilot license you have, you can leverage the 15% on top of that. If your customer has Copilot already and they want to add an additional 10 so that they get the additional promotion, but also any incremental licensing between now and the end of December, you can go ahead and add it to it. So take a screenshot of that if you haven't got it. It's in all of our webinars for the last little while, and it will come out when we submit the information to you.
Yeah, I don't know how we made it this far into the webinar without talking about the monthly pay option for Copilot that's coming up December 1st as
Well, if
well.
nobody asked, we don't want to say anything,
That's
right?
true. We didn't see that come up, but they'd asked about it 1,000 times before if they hadn't
Yes, yes. As soon
asked
as it's
about it.
available, nobody asked. To answer the question in the chat, Microsoft pays you directly on the CSP briefing into your portal. On the promotion side, that would come through Sherweb.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so with that, we've got tons of resources as usual. Everything from the presentations available. When you get the presentation, it'll have all the clickable links to all the information that we've presented on today. And if you are interested in Microsoft 365 Lighthouse and you think you can help, you want to see that, there is a few of the level up trainings that are upcoming. You can go to lighthouse.microsoft.com right now and get your tenant set up. As long as you have the right permissions, you can go turn that on and make sure that you get that going. But we will be reaching out to more partners. We just went through a full Lighthouse training through the Level Up series from Microsoft, where they dug into Copilot, all into the nitty gritty to give you all of the information that you want. So if you really want to go through an in-depth demo that is a full training to make sure that you can utilize Lighthouse most effectively, look out for that upcoming deep dive into Lighthouse that will be run by the Microsoft trainer.
Yeah.
With that, I think we are good to go. In the most coming up soon, we've got the next webinar series for December 11th. We're looking at additional streams, extending and customizing Copilot. Please do look at agents, look at some of the things that are coming out today over this week on from Microsoft Ignite. Keep yourself familiar with what's happening. Everything is Copilot these days. In-person events, we've got our December 3rd and December 5th upcoming full-day masterclass. We just finished a masterclass last week in Toronto. We had a great turnout, and so far, I think all the partners that attended got at least the 2 things that they were looking for coming to that event. So that's great news for everyone. And upcoming as well, if you'd want to register, I hear Dallas is going to be nice. Feel free to come to the warm one. But of course, we'll be in Irvine, California as well. Looking forward to seeing some partners there.
Yeah.
Cool. And we are going to pump through. So good luck with Lighthouse. Let us know if and when you get on board, and look out for that level up class coming for deep dive on Lighthouse. Let's
Right.
pop over questions. Any other questions in the crowd? I don't know. I feel like this is looking good. Please feel free to vote on that one. Anne Marie, how soon can you spin that up? Jeff, I feel like you could have spun that up. You could have spun that up real quick. You would have gotten some good vibes votes there. But now I'm gonna put that up as my photo for the rest of the day. All right. Well, if we haven't got any additional questions, thank you everyone for attending the webinar, and look forward to the rest of our content. See you soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.